Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And I'm here with Geoff Thompson, and he is joining me. You're in the UK today, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Welcome
England.
to High Road. Yes.
I'm about 100 yards from where Shakespeare was married.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's phenomenal.
Yeah,
That's
I'm in Stratford up on Avon, which is the birth town of Shakespeare. Yeah, so
that gave me chills for some reason. I got chills on that one.
Well, I'm hoping my writing improves any time, Nancy. I'm in the atmosphere. I'm breathing Shakespeare in. He's in the atmosphere.
He's in the just bring it in, God. He'll bring it to you. That's all you got to do. Hey, you guys, Geoff has written this really cool book, and this is a big one, you guys. It's going to be a big show today. 99 Reasons to Forgive. And Revenge Ain't One. When I read that title, I was like, yeah, that's about it too. It's hard to forgive. So we're going to talk about forgiveness today. But before we get started, let me tell you about Geoff Thompson. He is a BAFTA winning screenwriter, a penning multi-award winning film for luminaries such as Ray Winstone, Orlando Bloom, Anne Reid, Allison Steadman, and James Cosmo. He has also written over 40 books. Wow. I can't even believe that's crazy. His work in the self-help genre has been published in 21 languages. He's appeared on the Sunday Times bestseller list several times. His book, Watch My Back, and I'm going to have to watch this movie because I didn't realize. So you wrote this book detailing experiences working at a nightclub as a doorman in Coventry for over a decade, and that was adapted into a movie which was called Watch My Back, and it was nominated for a club award. Is that right? Talk about that for a second.
It was the book became a short film starring Ray Winstone, and that was nominated for a BAFTA. It was also a stage play that got picked up by the Royal Court in London.
Wow.
And then it was made into a film called Club, which was nominated for a BAFTA award. And then other stories from Watch My Back, because it's a bit of a Pandora's box.
Gotcha.
Other stories from that have become short films, stage plays. One of the stories in it about forgiveness became a feature film, an acclaimed feature film starring Orlando Bloom.
Right. So if I want to look it up, do I look for Clubbed or do I look for Watch My Back?
Well, Watch My Back is the book.
And the movie is Clubbed.
Clubbed was inspired by it, but the film,
okay.
The film that relates to this podcast is a film called Retaliation.
Okay.
So it was originally called Romans, but it's called Retaliation, and it stars Orlando Bloom, and that's the one that's very relevant to this. It's about the metaphysical power of forgiveness, but it's very graphic and it's very muscular. It isn't socks and sandals. It's a very muscular film about the power of forgiveness.
I love it. Isn't socks and sandals, you guys? I love that. That's phenomenal. All right, I got to say this. Geoff is also among the world's highest ranking self-defense and martial arts instructors. I think this is cool. So you have a black belt. I don't understand how this stuff works. You're just right up there, huh? With this kind of stuff.
Somebody said once, because I teach self-defense. One of my friends was talking to a monk, a Zen monk, and he said, "I'm doing some self-defense with Geoff Thompson." The monk said, "Which self are you defending against?"
That's funny. I like that. Well, I want to know your story. Why did you decide that you were going to write this book, 99 Reasons to Forgive? I mean, do you come from a religious background, or what's your story? Tell the audience.
Yeah, I do come from a Christian background.
Okay.
I was sexually abused. I was groomed and sexually abused at the age of 11. It created a dark schema, left me with a parasite. I didn't understand. I was too afraid to tell anybody about it. left me frightened. As an adult, it left me psychotic, jealous, but with like jealous psychosis. It left me feeling insecure. Later, when I tried to overcome these fears by confronting them, it displaced into violence. So I used to suffer with a lot of depressions because of this abuse, and I didn't really understand why. It used to debilitate me.
Right.
When I eventually found the power of forgiveness, I wanted to pass it on to other people because it's a release, but I didn't know how to articulate it. I couldn't articulate it. The guy that abused me when I was 11, I met him when I was 40, and when I was a monster, when I was a lump, like I was a senior martial artist, I was a seasoned bouncer, I could kill in 30 languages. I was a very able guy, but when I met him, I knew that that wouldn't work. I knew that violence would feed the parasite in me, and it would feed the parasite in him. And I knew that I had to forgive him. I had to give him over to a greater force than myself.
Right.
And that forgiveness released me from this unholy bond that we had. And I wanted to pass that on to other people and say, look, you can be free from the parasite of abuse, from resentment, from dissonance, from confusion, from anger, from hate, from the need for witness revenge. You can be free from that. But I didn't know how to articulate it. I was trying to talk to people, and they constantly kept equating forgiveness with pardon. I said, no, it's not pardon. I haven't got the power. I haven't got the power to pardon. That's not my power. That's divine power.
Well, yeah, because, and you even say in the book, forgiveness is not letting them off. It's not that we are gonna get out of it, or they get out of jail free card. I thought that was funny that you said that. But I want to stop you there for a second, because that's been my issue. I've worked on it. I guess I want to say this as you're talking, and I want to ask you how you did this, but forgiveness has been hard for me with certain people, because it's like you say, in one way, you want to see them suffer. You want to get back at them. You want revenge. There's a part of you, and this is what I want to talk about, because this is what stops everybody, and you can agree or disagree.
That's true.
This is what stops, like, I'm like, okay, I can forgive this person. And then you get a trigger and you remember, and then you get angry all over again. And it's almost like, I wonder if it, and then I'm just going to say this, Geoff, I just want to know what you think. Now I'm to a point where I've looked at the situation with this person as a broader picture and realized that this person really had issues. And then the compassion comes in.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the solution.
Yeah. And that's the only way.
Perceptive.
Well, that's the only way I've been able to figure that, because you do have to realize that, like the guy who did this to you, did you finally have compassion because you realized that somebody maybe did this to him?
Yeah, well, I know that he was a victim. He wasn't just a victim of somebody else. He was a victim of darker forces. So it's like a virus. If somebody gives you a virus, you don't attack them. You just get rid of the virus that's in you.
Well, are you saying he had something dark attached to him?
Yeah, I'd say you have something dark in him, and he put it into me. It's a parasite. So the enemy isn't the people, even though it happens through them, and it still happens on their watch. They still have a responsibility, and they still have to pay the consequence of that. But this energy works through people. That you could call it the adverse forces. It works through people. It pervades the atmosphere, and it works through people. So this person abused me and left a parasite in me. So he left that kind of dark energy in me. And over time, because I didn't talk about it and I didn't exercise it and I didn't clean it, it grew bigger and bigger.
Gotcha.
Until I started to abuse myself physically, sexually. I was angry. I was confused. I blamed everybody. When I finally started to try and overcome this fear, I couldn't quite articulate it at the time. I became a nightclub bouncer, but that only fed it because I was very violent.
Yeah, you were just right. You were feeding it. Yeah. Okay.
What I learned over time, that when I met this guy and forgave him, and I told him I forgave him, there was a release.
Right.
First of all, I told him the truth. So I injured him first. They say that if you want to forgive somebody, first injure them.
Well,
So
what
I
did you
injured him.
say? What did you say?
I told him the truth. I said to him, you may have rationalized what you did to me. You may have thought that I was complicit. You may have thought that it was just a relationship. I was a child.
Right.
It was an abuse.
Yes.
You abused me and you damaged my life. And then I said to him, you need to know I forgive you. Now, I said to him twice, I forgive you. And when I went to walk away, he stood up and put his hand out, and his hand was trembling like that. And he wanted me to shake his hand. I knew what he was saying. He was saying he wanted me to cement it. He wanted me to give him over to this greater force. So I didn't let him off, and I didn't condone what he did. I just gave him over to God, to reciprocity, to cause and effect, whatever you want to call it. Now, I walked away and I felt released because I'd let him go. But then then I realized my forgiveness was a quiet conceit, because I'd forgiven him. And now that I'd forgiven him, I'd been blinded so much by my anger towards him. I'd failed to see how many lives I'd damaged myself, how unkind I'd been in my own life, from the venal sins, like gossiping and being unkind, to the bigger, broader mortal sins where I was physically violent towards people in some kind of childish displacement.
Well, yeah, because when you're angry, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but when you're angry, you take it out on everybody else, because misery loves company, doesn't it?
And that just feeds the parasite. So I recognize that I'm spiritually greedy, but in a good way. I'm spiritually selfish in a good way. I want more light. I want to receive more light, and I want to transmit or impose more light into the world. But I can't do that if I've got blocks in me. If there are darknesses in me, if there are blocks in me, that light can't find its way through. So by forgiving him, I release that parasite, I release that darkness. Now that darkness that's in me, that parasite, also contains light. Even though it's a parasite, it's still got light in it.
Did you send it to the light?
What I did is I gave it over to God. I gave it over to reciprocity. So the nature of the abuse was liberated, and the effulgence that was locked in it, the light, came to me, and I expanded. So consciousness expanded. Then I was able to see all the harm I'd done myself. Ever since this person abused me when I was 11, none of the decisions I made from that point on were my own. I never had autonomy. He stole my autonomy. So when I gave him over to reciprocity, or when I gave him over to God, I gave him back his parasite, and I took my autonomy back. This is what they say in Judaism. If you see somebody that's abused you, run after them and serve them, because they have something of yours and you need it back, and you have something of theirs and you should give them that back. So we have their parasite. It lives in us. It's not a metaphor. It's a living energy form.
Well, and I've heard this, and I want to stop you. So how did you give it back? Okay, so you said, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so you forgave him. He wanted to shake your hand. You chose not to shake his hand, but yet you took that piece of darkness. You say you sent it to God. Did you send it to God, or did you give it back to him?
I gave him the truth, which was because this is a man that was damaged.
I know, but
he would have rationalized what he did.
Right.
So I said to him, none of those rationalizations work. But what you did to me was wrong. I was a child.
Right.
You abused me. So I gave him the truth, and I gave him back the parasite. So he's got the parasite, but I've also given it over to God as well. So basically, I've given him
it back.
I've given him over to his own, to the consequences of his own actions.
Now,
I was free then to look at the atonement of my own errors.
Right. So now I want to say this to you, because something similar happened to me in my life with my mom. Now, do you look at this as a blessing? Because look who you are. Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy?
That's what I say to people. There's life after abuse. There is treasure in the ruins.
Yeah.
Because not only have you removed darkness and taken the light from that as a gift, you've also made room for more light. So you bring more light in, more consciousness.
Wow.
So for me, I realized I didn't have the power to pardon him. That's something only God can do.
Right.
So I gave him over to that force. What I do have the power to do is to atone my own errors, to repent, or to redeem. So all the decisions I've made after this abuse, I damaged myself. I'd been unkind to people. For a time, I was quite violent. So I've got lots of karma myself to clean. So once I'd got rid of him, and that wasn't an obscurity anymore, I was able to see my own errors and recognize that those errors also lived in me as parasites. And they also blocked light, but they also contained light. So I wanted that light. So I started to give them over. I started to atone, as in other words, each error that I made duplicated me. So I was divided. And I started to dissolve each one of those divides or demons until I became at one, till I attained atonement. So that's the process. The process is I'm not concerned too much about what he did to me or what anybody else did to me, or what the greedy politician or the violent fundamentalist or the greedy banker or the corrupt bank. I'm not worried about what they do. I'm looking for the corrupt banker or the corrupt politician in me. I'm looking for the greedy banker in me. I'm looking for the violent fundamentalist in me. I'm going to clean them from me. I'm going to retrieve the light, and I'm going to make room for light so that my consciousness can continue to expand. And this light isn't blocked all the time. Every time light wants to come through us, it is blocked by any kind of resistor or resistance. And these resistors or resistances are the angers, the fear, the anxiety, the depression.
I agree. I agree with you to a certain degree, but I will say that I bring in the light every day, and I bring it up from the earth, and I bring it in through my crown chakra and through my body. And I believe that the light will help heal and will help
it does
dissipate some of those blockages. It will help you clear it. Bringing in the light, I will say, it will help you clear some of those blockages away, or even make you aware. I want to rewind a little bit, because you've done all this and it's really cool. But the part where people get stuck, let's go back. And let's go back to I want to get back at this person. I want to see them. I want revenge. And I think the biggest thing that people don't understand, and I want you to kind of go back and talk about this a little bit, because I finally have understood it. It takes a while. You don't have to do anything, because God takes care of it. The universe takes care of it. And it's really quite interesting. I think what happens with humans is that we want it to happen now. We want to see it. That person has done me wrong, and I want to see it in this life.
We want witness revenge.
And I've been there. I'm like, oh, I just want it. I'll be all right once I see that person gets theirs. And then you finally have to get to this point, and that's why I'm talking about this, because a lot of people, I mean, we're all human. This is what happens. We want to see that person get theirs for what they did, because they, an eye for an eye. Come on. But the part that we have to realize is that God does take care of it, and the universe does take care of it.
It's impeccable.
It's true. And, that's the part, I think, where people get hung up. Talk about this.
Well, the universe is impeccable. It keeps its own books. It does not need us to witness a revenge in order to balance the books. The hills and the valleys will be leveled and filled. So it doesn't mean we don't have to do anything. We may have to play our part. We may have to have our day in court. We may need to demand justice. But if we're going to demand justice of other people, we equally need to demand justice of ourselves for the things we've done wrong, because all of us walk around like we're wounded and that we've never hurt anybody else. True. So justice is a two-way street. I have every right to demand justice from somebody that's assailed me, but I need to make sure I'm ready to meet the justice from my own actions, which I have been doing all my life. So karma is a fatberg. Everybody contributes to it. If you drop a pebble in the corner of the pond, the ripples will meet every aspect of that pond. So in that respect, everybody is responsible for everything, because whether you drop in a venal sin or a mortal sin, it all adds up to a fatberg that we all have to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
Once you realize that what we think, what we say, what we do has an effect in the world, it has a rippling effect. Once we understand reciprocity or causality, we automatically start to think and say and do only good things. So people think that gossiping isn't bad, but in Judaism, they would consider that murder. Because we are assassinating a character. They think that embarrassing somebody is not that bad. But when we embarrass somebody, again, in the Torah, they talk about the fact that you are drawing blood. So if we want to go into the
words, it's our words. It's our, we do a lot.
I mean, in
the spoken word.
Yeah, the spoken word. They call it magic sound, heka, or this ability to create with sound. The world was created with sound. So we are creating things every single day with our thinking, with our saying, with our doing. Once you get that, once you fully understand it, and once you understand the meticulous and impeccable nature of the universe, and it does not forget that everybody has to meet, every Dr. Jekyll has to pick up the bill for his own Mr. Hyde. We're always picking up the bill for our darker side. Once you recognize that, there is no profit and no intelligence in being unkind to anybody. So that's how I live my life. And I fall the same as everybody else, but I understand it. So I make sure that everything I put out comes from a place of love. If there are elements that rise in me that are dark and that are not kind, I observe them choicelessly. So I practice choiceless awareness. I observe them, but I don't engage them. I observe them, but I don't identify with them. If I do that, they dissipate. The nature of that defilement is liberated, and the effulgence comes over to me. This is
you don't want to give it energy. You don't want to give it more energy, is what you're saying.
If you're looking at a situation with revenge, with anger, with fear, with anxiety, with confusion, you are feeding the very energy that you're trying to get rid of. So we're feeding the very energy we want to lose. If we think a dark thought about somebody, we become bound to them. We are entangled by them.
That's true.
My abuser was still abusing me 30 years after the initial abuse, even though we were separated by miles and miles, and he was even still abusing me after he died, because the parasite was still in me and still active until I actually stopped engaging it and identifying with it. When the parasite rises, this is the danger, Nancy. We think that its thinking is ours. We think it's us. But not only that, the parasite thinks it's us as well. So that in that state of entanglement, we think these thoughts, these whispers are ours. They're not. So we have to learn to find stillness.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you there. Do you think, I just want to know what you think on this one, because I work on all this stuff too. You probably know that. But so when you get a thought, it's kind of a weird deal. When I get a thought and it's something that I don't even want to deal with now, I just run it through my gut and I don't think about it anymore and I start over.
Yeah.
Now, but here's the question, because as you're talking, I'm thinking it's not really, I don't think it's my thought, because we're like radio transmitters. I think it's that person's thought and it got to me. Is that what you're saying? I'm saying that
thoughts are, that person.
Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that person,
so right? It's his thoughts. But thought is a separate entity anyway.
Right.
We think that the thoughts we think are ours.
Are ours, right? But it could be coming from somewhere else, because we're energy, we're transmitters.
Because thoughts come from a separate realm.
Right. So it's not even our thought.
No, it's not ours or theirs.
We
choose whether we
acknowledge it
into it or not. Yeah. So and the mother talk about the fact that talk of thought as a separate density, as a separate frequency. We don't know that the thoughts aren't ours, so we think every single thought that comes in.
Now, I'm going to stop you again. I'm going to stop you. This is a great conversation. This is so much fun, Geoff. So when I do a reading and my angel tells me, now I work with angels. So I do a reading and I just ask my angels and it just comes immediately. So, but I know it's her because
Yeah.
Asking her.
So that's because
So
you've got discernment. You have spiritual discernment.
yes.
The divine sword, as they call it.
Yes. But that doesn't mean that other thoughts from other people can't come at me. And it's up to me. This is what I want to express to the audience so people get this. So when that thought comes in our head, you don't have to think, well, why did I think that? Because there's a lot of times where you'll go, why did I think that? But what you're saying is, it's not something I thought.
It's not yours. No.
And how did it get to me? Then how did my energy field draw it into me then?
Well, if you've got anything negative in you, if you've got any negative frequencies, these negative frequencies will be drawn to it. That's it. So they, Aurobindo would call it a partner. So if I've got negative conditioning, a negative wound, a negative perception, cognition, precepts, concepts, if I've got those loaded into me from my conditioning,
from childhood, like from programming, from programming,
even from thousands of years of conditioning, then these thoughts will be attracted to that frequency. So our job is to remove those frequencies through purging or through the process of regeneration, that we become a clean vessel. So then eventually we are an observer sat in the center of the universe, just choosing what we engage and what we don't engage.
You and I are on the same page. That's so much fun.
So I only choose love. And I speak to intelligences, the same as you. I speak to them. I speak to the Holy Spirit, which is the female energy. The Holy Spirit is in me, and I just say, I only want to serve God. I only want to be close to God. I only want to please God. Please show me how I can serve. So the angel goes before me. It tells me when to turn left and when to turn right, when to push and when to yield, when to say yes, when to say no, whether to spend 5 minutes with somebody or whether to spend 5 years with somebody. So I don't make any decisions anymore. I just follow the commands of spirit.
Right. Now I'm going to stop you again, because this is something I just learned. So I'm going to tell everybody about it, because I want everyone to understand this stuff. Now, here's the deal. And this is just me personally, so I'll just put myself out there. When you are asked to go somewhere or do something, sometimes we're so quick to say, oh yeah, I'll go. But what I've learned is, as an empath and as a spiritual person, like you were just saying, you have to stop and you have to wait a minute and you have to ask your angel, is this for my best and my highest good?
Absolutely.
And that has been something I have learned recently, because I am so, I'll go.
I'll do anything.
I'm just I'll go. I'm a happy soul. Why not?
There's lots of spirits trying to talk to us, and they're not all good.
And so there you go. But this has been, and this comes from just not really knowing, not, just being spontaneous and not really understanding. And there's a reason I'm bringing this up, because you did. You said that before you do something, you ask.
Yeah, always.
See,
every interview I do, every letter I reply to, I say, every meeting I go to, I say, listen, I'm going to see Nancy today. I don't know what to say. I don't know what I'm doing. Please work through me. Please let Nancy hear you through me. And I'll be that vessel. For me to be a better vessel, like I said to you earlier on, for me, people who have got damaged vessels, it doesn't mean they can't receive light. But if we want to receive more light, and we want the light to be cleaner, and we want the light to come through smoother, then we remove every obstacle we can remove in order to be a great transmitter. Otherwise, if we're a dirty hose, the water might come through clean, but it's going to come out the other end dirty because the hose is dirty. So it's constantly working on contracting anything dark in order to expand consciousness. And when that happens, when we do that, we are noticed. It's what I would call first contact. The spirit goes, this guy's doing the work. So the teachers start to form around you. They start to guide you. The soul wakes up and starts to teach you. Your soul becomes your teacher. And then you don't ever make a decision again. You just, there's nothing everything I do, I know is important. So I always say to the spirit, I mean, sometimes it's obvious I need to do it, but sometimes I'll say, I'm not sure about this. Is this right?
Right. Me too. Right. And then you ask.
I ask, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I ask, I wake up talking to God or the Spirit, and I talk to the Spirit all day.
Me too.
And then I go to bed at night talking to the Spirit. So I'm in constant prayer.
Me too. That's awesome. I'm so glad you do that. That's so cool. Yeah, there's other of us that do it too. And there's more and more of us. There's more light shining, and there's more people waking up, and there's more souls doing this kind of stuff. And I love what you say. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It changes your life when you start to connect and you bring in the light. That's really the key. And I teach the audience, you don't know this maybe, but because you probably, I don't know if you watch my show or not, but I've taught the audience to bring in the light from above and to bring in the light from below, from Mother Earth. And you brought up the feminine a few minutes ago. I wondered if you'd expand a little bit on the feminine energies.
Yeah, the feminine, when they talk about the Holy Spirit or the Holy Dove, that is considered to be the feminine energy. So if you've got the soul, we've got our soul, which is, you know, in our center, in our heart. It's right in the very heart of us. When we start to attract the Holy Spirit, it coats the soul. They call it Christing. So it coats it and gives it layers. So it becomes Christed. Once the soul becomes Christed, so the soul comes initially, like you say, from above, but also from behind the soul. It coats it. Once it's coated, it moves in front of the soul and leads the soul. So the soul becomes like the maid to the mother. So it goes out and does the work of the soul. The soul, the Holy Dove is the essence of God. So if you imagine the sun, the light and the heat, that's like the Trinity. So once the soul becomes coated in this Holy Spirit and it becomes Christed, it's like it's tempered. The soul becomes tempered so that it's able, like the filament in a light bulb. It's tempered so that it can receive light. So then we are able to bring in dark and light energy and place the filament of the soul between them to create and to birth new light. So that's what we do. So we've got a dark force, a light force and a dark force. That's in everybody. When the soul wakes up and it becomes tempered and Christed, we can put it between those two forces and it burns to create light. Then we can bring light into the world. And the more tempered the soul is, the more prepared the soul is, the cleaner the soul is, the more light it's able to emit. If the soul isn't, it's like for instance, like a 40-watt bulb would probably blow if you put 100 watts through it. So if you want to put 100 watts through a bulb, you need a thicker and a wider and a more tempered filament. So in other words, we need to go through the passions, through the stations of the cross in order to temper the soul. Christ called it the bitter cup. We drink from the bitter cup, so we cleanse ourselves, so there is no unkindness in us. And then the Spirit is attracted to that because it feeds off that. If we were unkind, we push it away again. So it's constantly about getting up every single day and starting again. Can I refine?
No, you're very knowledgeable. And I love that you've gone through this and that you've written this book and that you're sharing it with everybody. I think it's just amazing. You're very knowledgeable. I want to know your feeling on something because I was meditating this morning. and a lot of people, you're a bright light. I'm a bright light. And I'm an empath. So I always have to watch it. A lot of us empaths, I do shows on empaths, where we kind of we don't really cloak ourselves, but we protect ourselves. We put protection. Yeah. I always put the blue flame sword of truth. Archangel Michael watches over me. So I always ask him, to come in and watch my back.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
My middle name is Michael. That's St. Michael.
Ah, okay. God bless. So here's my question. A friend of mine, she was doing a massage on me and she says, she's pretty intuitive too. She says, you shouldn't protect yourself. You should just put your light out there and let it be free and let it be bright. But there's a fine line. And I want to know your feeling on this, because in one way, it's cool for us to put our light out there. Yes, we have to ask, before we go into a situation. But on the flip side, we also need to protect ourselves. And I wonder how you feel about that. I feel like it's a balancing act.
Yeah, constantly balancing that.
Is that
First
what
of
you
all,
think too? Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
go
first
ahead.
of all,
Yeah.
I can tell you that it's not my light. I know that for definite.
Mm-hmm.
The light comes into me. There is a light in me, and it's a tincture, a spark of God, but it's not my light.
Right.
I have to be really careful not to own it, because if I own it, the ego gets
Gotcha. Right.
kind of
Right.
gets fat in it. So
Okay.
I know that what comes through me and what comes out of me is not mine. The more
Okay.
I can acknowledge that to myself, the more I'm able to bring in. So I'm a postman. I'm
Okay.
delivering letters of light, but I'm not the source of the light.
Right.
I bring it in.
You're a vessel. You're the vessel.
Yeah, so I'm the vessel. So
Mm-hmm.
I attract the light. I conserve the light. Sometimes I have to train and finesse the light, and then through the imposition of hands or spirit or talk, I put the light where I'm guided to put the light. But I don't know where it's going to go or what it's going to do. Sometimes I get an idea of it. I just go where I'm asked to go. So, but I don't take credit. I don't take any credit for what the light does.
No,
It's
but do you
about,
try to protect yourself? Because here's the
yeah,
reason
you've got
yeah,
to.
well, here's the
Yeah.
reason I'm asking you, because here you
Hmm.
are, 11-year-old boy,
Yeah.
and this dark entity, right, who's
Yeah.
attached to this other person.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I asked this, because we're bright lights. So the dark entities, I guess this is a two-ended question. Well, I want to know what you think. In one way, they're attracted to the light, but on another way, they're afraid of it if it's too bright. Does that make
Terrified
sense?
of it. Yeah. So what they're only going to be attracted to you if you've still got partners in you.
Dark.
If you have any darkness in you,
Gotcha.
if you're not comfortable with your darker side, if you've still got like things you haven't processed, like secrets. One of the
Yeah,
things
yeah,
I do
yeah.
when I do sessions with people, one of the things I do is I give them I give them people can try this if they want to, but I give them a blank pad and a pen, and I say, what are you afraid to write in that pad? What can you write in that pad that nobody ever knows? What are you ashamed of? What
Mm,
did you do? What have you done? What do you continue to do?
mm,
What is it that you've not cleaned out yet? Because whilst that's
mm,
still in you, you'll always attract darkness. And
mm.
the light can protect you to a degree, but while that darkness is in there, it will
It'll
act like
bring
a
that
homing
energy
pigeon.
in. Right,
Yeah.
right, right. Well,
So,
what
but
about little
once you,
kids? What about little kids, though? I mean, here you were an innocent kid. I mean, how do you
mm,
protect the children?
well, we have to, when we start to look at the world,
Well,
it
you know what I'm
gets.
saying, right? I mean,
I
because,
understand,
yeah, I mean, it's like,
but it's beyond fathom. We
mm,
can never work it out. All we can do is go, where is the darkness in me? When
mm-hmm,
I get the darkness out of me and I create light
mm-hmm,
and I expand with light and I emit light,
mm-hmm.
I by lifting my consciousness up a tiny bit, I lift the consciousness up of everybody.
Right,
By bringing light into the world, I'm bringing light in not just for me, but for everybody. So
right,
everything affects everything. Everything
right.
affects everything, and everybody affects everything. So my job is not to try and work the world out because my head would explode. My job is to recognize that there is a karmic fatberg, and it grows over generations. Everybody contributes if they do anything dark. We can contract that by continually being kind. If everything I'm saying sounds complicated, reduce it to one thing: be kind, think
Mm-hmm,
kind, say kind, be
mm-hmm,
kind. And when you do that, out light, but expect nothing in return and take no credit for it. And don't advertise the fact that, I don't mean don't advertise your work, but I mean, I don't talk to people and say, I don't, I do a lot for charity, but I don't like to talk about it. What I do is I give the work out and then I don't talk about it. I always think if we're talking about what we've done and it's good for
I
people,
agree with you.
we haven't done enough.
Yeah.
I can't. There should be so many instances in your life every single day where you're anonymously helping people,
Mm-hmm,
especially if you're helping people to help themselves. You
mm-hmm,
can't even remember what you've done. You should be getting people who are saying, "You changed my life," and you can't even remember because you've written or sent books to so many people. So um, so it's constantly about recognizing that if there is darkness in us, if there is unprocessed trauma, if there is what you would call sin when we've made an error, if there's any kind of defilement, any kind of guilt or shame, God will speak to you, and he speaks to you through conscience, and that will trigger out, and you'll go, don't know how I did that, don't know why I did it. And at some point we have to go into that. Jung would call this individuation. We'd go into that unconscious and bring it up and process it, perhaps through somebody like yourself, or perhaps through somebody like me, or however they do it. You could just write it down in a book and go, that happened on my watch. I did that. I own all of it. I take full responsibility for it. Once we do that and we clean it, this darkness can pervade and wander as much as it wants. It will not find you because you are invisible. Al-Ghazali said that when we fall out of alignment and we are unkind, we are noticed.
Right.
And the moment you say an unkind word, the moment you think an unkind word, the devil is present.
Right.
This is esoteric work. Not many people want to look at it, but this is the mechanics of the metaphysics. If we are juggling a thought around in our head and it's unkind, the devil is present. There's no doubt. The devil, or the divide, or the adverse force, or the Sita Akra, whatever you want to call it, it's an energy form. It has what did Eckhart Tolle call it? It's a semi-autonomous thought form. And if it rises and you engage it, then it incarnates you. And when it incarnates you, it acts as you and through you in the world, and it leaves karma for you to pick up. And then we find ourselves going, I don't know why I did that. I wasn't myself. I was out of character. That's not me. That's not what I do. And because it wasn't. Right. Because it's so devious and so covert, it will rise up. They call it in Judaism, they call it the whisperer. It whispers. You hear it sometimes. She said this and they said that, and you should do this. And suddenly you've got this whole contrivance going on, and none of it's yours. But what the main thing to do is that we need to get rid of the partners from in us. We need to get rid of the parasites. Yes. And everybody has them. That's part of the human condition. Right. The moment we get rid of the parasites,
then you're good to go.
We contract. I call it expansion through contraction, contraction through expansion. So when we contract the ego, consciousness expands. When we expand consciousness through prayer, through meditation, through these kind of aligned conversations, ego contracts. And you're right what you said, these energy forms cannot bear to be around the light. It's impenetrable. But if you have a partner in you, they'll sniff it like a bloodhound.
And that makes total sense to me. That makes total sense, because as long as you're aware, and that's really cool that you explained that, and thank you, because I agree with you. I think that once you get through all those little parts, and it's really working on yourself, bottom line is, to thyself be true.
Yeah.
And that's what I really feel like we're all doing right now, is working on ourselves to bring in that light, to connect back to God. I want to know what you feel as far as, I'll make that conversation a little broader, as far as humanity right now in the world right now. A lot of us are doing these shows, and I have people on, and I teach people how to bring in the light, and we teach people how to connect and go back to God, so they're filled up on the inside with light and not stuff. And there is a change happening right now. What do you feel?
That's very true.
Yeah, how do you feel about this? What's going on where you are? I mean, do you see it like I do? Do you feel it?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I look around and I know that people don't understand the basic laws of the world they live in. They don't understand causality.
We haven't been taught.
No, absolutely true. So they don't understand causality, and they don't understand also that the world is insoluble. It's not here to be fixed. We're here to perfect ourselves within this world, within this classroom, within this kind of anti-gravity training. We're here to perfect the soul and release spirit, so the spirit can go out and enter people. If we're talking now and somebody feels inspired by what we say, we have imposed spirit onto them, and that spirit will grow in them. That's about the best we can do. But it's no good if we're not hermetically sealed, Nancy. If we haven't got a hermetic seal, it's no good as bringing in more light, because it will just leak. It will just leak, and when it leaks, it attracts beast and foul. So we have to make sure
work on ourselves.
We have to make sure we're hermetically sealed, and to be hermetically sealed means that if I gossip, I leak energy. If I'm unkind, I leak energy. If I do the wrong things or watch the wrong things, if I bring the wrong things across the threshold, I'm leaking energy.
Well, I think now I'm going to stop you there, because what I've seen, this is what I've truly seen up close and personal. Unfortunately, I've seen when people do things wrong that the entities attach themselves to these people.
I listened to this, Nancy. I went to do a group talk. Sorry to interrupt you. Forgive me.
No. I'm just wanting to get that out, because I see it. It's weird.
I went to do a talk for. I've been to talk in Cat A prisons, you know, with lifers, murderers, drug dealers. But I went to do a talk for a group of kids who were kicked out of school, and they were in this kind of like special school. So they were troubled kids,
right?
And I had exactly the same experience as you. I thought, I'm going to go in there. They're just kids. I've dealt with murderers, so this is going to be easy. It was one of the most difficult sessions I ever did, because I could see entities clinging round and feeding directly from every one of these kids. And I felt the entities working through all of these kids. One of the kids was sitting under the table. One of them was pretending to be asleep. Another one was shouting at the teachers. One was just walking around aimlessly. And all of them were trying to trigger my ire. I brought spirit into the room. It took me a little while to settle it.
Right.
And once I brought spirit into the room, they were so attracted to the spirit. They were so attracted to that light.
To the light. Yeah.
Equally, when I've gone to prisons, I've gone into a prison.
So wait, stop. So did they go to the light?
Yeah, but by the end of the class, there was a main ringleader in the class, and he was kind of bullying the teachers, and he was controlling the class. And I managed to get him. When I got him, I injured him by telling him the truth. I said to him, "Your father was a bully, and he hurt your mum." I said, "But you are a bully. You are like your father. You're bullying these teachers. You're bullying these children. You're trying to bully me." I said, "You are being like your father." The moment he saw that, he stopped. And I said, "Do you know how much power you could emit if you could center yourself and align yourself? Do you know that you could have so much spirit in you that if you're in a room, even if people don't know you, they can be healed. They can have aspiration, inspiration, ideas. Yeah. People can be freed. People can be untangled just because you're there. You have the power with a thought or with a word or with a touch to absolutely transform people's life. Now that's worth getting out of bed for in the morning. So
you're gonna make me cry. You know that, right?
Yeah. But I went into a prison, and I've got like 50 lifers, so they're all in for life, and I'm watching them looking at me, and they'd whisper into each other like, "Who's this bold middle-aged guy?" But I don't go to the prison on my own.
They ask you. You go with your angels. You take them with you.
I'd never go to a place like that on my own.
Yeah.
The moment I started to talk, they were all leaning into me. They were leaning into me like there was a vortex, like there was a vacuum. They were feeling the spirit. Right. And I was saying to them, "You are here. You are in this prison because a dark perception has got you to do things that's created this prison. Now you can't escape from it." I said, "I've just walked through every single door. This is the most impregnable prison in Britain." And they say, "You can't get in and you can't get out." I said, "I've just walked through every door. They've all opened for me." And I said, "And I'll walk back out again." That's because my perception is in a different place to yours. It's a higher perception. It's an angelic intelligence. I said, "You're here because of perception. You can be freed from here if you change perception." And they understood it.
God, that's so cool. Isn't that cool? Don't you just feel like so? I mean, to me, that's what, that's wonderful work. That's phenomenal work.
That's what inspires me every day, Nancy, to work on my own darker elements.
Sure.
It encourages me to work and remain in the center, to remain in that center column.
Right.
And if I remain in the center column, I will be surrounded by angels, and they are my protection. I'm not my protection. I'm weak. The reason I know I'm humble, because people say, "Oh, you're humble." I said, "Yeah, I'm humble. I know I'm humble because I know how weak I am." I've absolutely been on my knees when I've been going through regeneration processes. But the moment we make ourselves weak, Christ is is perfected in that weakness.
Well, I just want to follow that up with anytime I've ever been on my knees and really needed help, God has come through for me every single time.
Often the only time he can come through because we won't let him in.
Well, that's another thing. Okay, well, we got 5 minutes. So that's where I'm at today. All right, I love it. All right, so today, and I want to bring this up because I'm sure you're working on this too. Now it's like, let go, let God. Now I'm to the point, because we all are at this different places, and now it's like, okay, go ahead. Do what you got to do, because when you let go, and this is what I'm learning to do, it's really hard to do, by the way, and you don't try to control the situation. And I mean, you got to live on earth. You got to go do the stuff that you're used to doing.
Yeah.
But when you let the universe take over, I believe miracles happen. Yeah. So that's where I'm at today, Geoff, with the, are you there too?
Exactly the same. I don't make any decisions. And my life is not about increase. My life is about decrease. So I'm attracting spirit via negative. They call it. It's called apophatic theology. Someone said to me, what's the right path? And I said, I don't know the right path, but I know the wrong path. Right. I said, and if you start walking on the wrong path, you'll be walking on the right path. So if we don't know what God is, we do know what he isn't. We know he's not unkindness. We know he's not gossip. We know he's not the pornographies of the world.
He's love.
He's love. So we get rid of everything that's not love. Yeah. And of course, we will be surrounded. And just to go back to what you said earlier on, yes, we do need to be protected, and we need to get up every single day, and we make sure we are protected. And I do that by just saying to my angels, I'm going out here today. Please protect me. I only want to serve God. I only want to stay close to God. I only want to please God. Please surround me and protect me. But they demand that I do my part of the work.
Right.
You can't feed this thing and starve it at the same time.
Well, that's what I was saying. You still got to go through the motions, even though, because it's really easy to get up in there and just forget about what's happening down on earth. And you got to, it's a balancing act. You have to be able to be up there and down here at the same time in order to do this. I love it. I'm so glad you came to join me today. You guys, the book is 99 Reasons to Forgive. Now, his name is spelled Geoff Thompson. So it's Geoff Thompson, but it's spelled in the English way. So if you guys are looking him up, I looked up your website, Geoff, and it's like, I love this. I looked up your website and it says, I'm busy right now writing books and I'm not dealing with social media. And I was like, well, God bless.
Yeah, all I do now is I've got an Instagram page.
Okay, tell us what it is.
It's called Geoff_Thompson, Geoff_Thompson_official, and it's run by a beautiful girl called Gabriella. So I post on there all the time, and everything I do is on there. But I'm not really on social media. I'm just
I love it.
Just doing the work.
I think that's
spectacular.
Before I go
as well, I've never felt as much light from anybody on any podcast as I felt from you. As soon as I started speaking to you, I started smiling. It's such a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. God bless. All right, you guys. This is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. If you do want an angel reading, go to my website, nancyyearout.com, and book your date and time. The book is called 99 Reasons to Forgive. Everybody have a fabulous week, and God bless.